Comparison, that's a big one. A lot of people spend too much time, and this is a negative habit, of focusing on what other people have and comparing what they have to what the next person has, and then obsess over, the negative side of that. Kind of goes to negativity. Welcome to Burning the Shift Podcast, and I'm your host, Jason Seward. And today I am flying solo again, and I'm going to be talking about this idea. It's a thought that I got from a book that I'm reading, and the quote in the book basically said that quitting bad habits is far more impactful than starting new good habits. And then it goes on to say you got to stop the leak before you fill up the bucket. So the logic there is, or the idea there is, if you have a bucket with a hole in the bottom of it and it's leaking water, so it's half full and it's leaking water, if you are just trying to add water, so call those new habits, trying to add things in to stop the water, it's never going to end. It's just going to be you're going to always have to be adding water, or the analogy, adding new habits. The bad habit is the leak at the bottom of the bucket. So before you start adding things new, you got to fix that leak. And if you don't fix that leak, then you'll never be able to build, right? You'll never be able to grow. You're always going to be either stagnant or going backwards because you're just leaking out all the good and trying to, essentially mask it by adding more good, right? So how that relates to humans, us, is this idea around, everybody gets motivated to start something new, right? It's exciting. Everybody loves addition, adding things. And something new could be, like physically, it could be a new workout routine or some new protocol, whether you're going to do ice baths or saunas, or you're going to try a new diet fad, intermittent fasting, or, whatever's going on. That would be an example of adding a new habit in, right? You're trying to build a new habit. But most people do that. They add these new things in thinking it's going to change everything, but they're not eliminating the bad habits that cause them to get into a position that they need to add the new habit. So I'll stick to the example, like of physical or diet or health or whatever. It's, you don't get, if you're a healthy person, let's say younger, you're in your 20s, you're healthy, relatively healthy, you're fit, you don't have much going on as far as, any blood pressure issues, cholesterol issues, everything's pretty good, right? But your habits might be bad. So you've got the benefit, you got youth on your side, right? They kind of mask all these bad habits, right? So you might have a poor diet, you might have poor sleep, you might have, you don't exercise or move that much, but just because you're young, your metabolism's naturally higher and things like that, your hormones are probably more stable and where they need to be. So everything is kind of optimized just because of youth. So it kind of covers up your bad habits. But as you start to age, those bad habits don't go away in a lot of cases. And naturally, your body starts to slow down, right? Your metabolism slows down, start to get more aches and pains and stuff like that. And those bad habits that you have in place, bad diet, bad exercise, bad movement, things like that, start to compound and you start feeling them. So let's say now we're getting into our late 30s, early 40s, and now we're starting to feel bad. Maybe we're carrying 40, 50 extra pounds of weight we didn't have 15, 20 years ago. Maybe we get winded when we go up a flight of stairs or something like that. So something has created that. It's not just age, it's just poor habits combined with time has gotten you to this point. So a lot of people get to that point, and what do? Instead of addressing the root problem, which are bad habits that got them there, they try to add things in to fix the results that they've gotten, right? So in addition, like, again, everybody likes addition. Everybody likes adding things. It's fun. It's new. You can get excited and motivated. And sometimes you see some, like, immediate results or some short-term results. Nobody wants subtraction. Nobody, it's painful to take things away from your life that you perceive as pleasurable, right? Eating unhealthy food, sitting on the couch rather than getting up and going for a walk, eating a pint of ice cream instead of some Greek yogurt at night, something like that. It's painful to take those things away because you enjoy them, right? So they're bad habits, but so nobody wants to take them away. So they try to mask them by adding new habits in, right? So stopping those things, it feels like you perceive it as this is torture, this is painful. So I'm just going to add some things in, albeit whatever it is. Say it's January 1st and you're going to start hitting the gym. So I'm going to keep doing what I do, but I'm going to add in 3 days a week going to the gym an hour a day. I'm going to add that in. Well, if all you're doing is adding that, number one, it's not going to be sustainable because your mindset's still stuck in those bad habits. So you might ride that motivation wave for a little while, but eventually that's going to subside. But even if it doesn't, and you're adding an improvement, but you're still leaking. You're leaking water out. You're leaking water out because of your bad diet. You're leaking water out because of maybe your poor sleep, drinking too much alcohol, not getting, the proper nutrients in your body, stuff like that. Yes, you've added something. That is probably a net improvement over where you were, but it's like, again, that bucket analogy, the bucket's leaking out a gallon an hour and you're adding 1.2 gallons an hour. So your net increase is 0.2 gallons an hour, where you could be adding a gallon an hour and reduce that leakage from a gallon an hour to 0.2 an hour, right? By fixing your diet, or improving your diet and things like that. So, most people, like, they're not losing because they have a shortage. And when I say losing, I'm just talking about overall in life, health, business, career, money, financially, family, marriage, whatever. It's not because they lack opportunity of things to add in. It's because they just keep leaking, right? And the leaking are those bad habits that you've done for so many. They're just ingrained in you, and you won't change them. You get excited for adding more in. There's no lack of things to add in to fix things, right? So, like, some personal tie-ins for me would be, and I'll use like my family, my marriage, and being a father and stuff like that. Some bad habits that I've had, that I continue to try to eliminate, and they'll never go away. It's who I am, but I've done a good job focusing on them. Are like, I'm impatient sometimes, right? I'm impatient with my kids. I'm impatient with my wife sometimes, right? I like quick results, and I like things to happen as I visualize them happening. And when they don't, I get impatient, right? And I'm much better now than I was, say, 5-10 years ago, but it's still a bad habit that I really focus on, right? I can be moody, right? I don't stress that much, but sometimes I just don't feel like being around people, right? So I can get in moods. Anybody that's close to me knows that 90% of the time you're getting happy-go-lucky, always happy Jason, and positive. But sometimes I just want to be quiet, and I really don't have much to say. And it's not a bad mood. It's just I like my quiet. But how does that impact the folks around me? It's leaking, right? It's not a good impact to those around me. So I've been working on that for years. I get very easily distracted. It's, call it ADHD, call it whatever you want, but ever since I was a kid, I have a very tough time focusing on one thing at a time. So I'm easily distracted, which means I often have 10 things going on at the same time. Do you think that's a leak of the bucket or an addition to the bucket? It's definitely a leak. So I have to work really hard to manage my focus, really carve out time to do certain things, and get disciplined around that. But that's not by creating necessarily new habits. Is stopping the leak of those old habits, which are those old habits are, as I'm recording this, everybody, the joke is, you see a squirrel, you say squirrel. I'm literally, y'all can't see it on camera, looking out my back window to the left of my computer screen, and I'm seeing 2 squirrels. That's a distraction to me. It's literal squirrels right there. One of them has something in his mouth. I'm watching him right now. I don't know what it is. I'm very curious as what it is. but I can't go and chase that squirrel. I have to stay locked in doing this. So that's something I fight every day, all day, but it's a bad habit. Just the instinct I have to chase every distraction I see, right? It's really bad in business. And I've really worked harder on fixing that leak of that habit and making improvements in that rather than adding in some app on my phone or some kind of resource to help me in that area. I just got to fix the root cause of the problem, which is stop being so distracted all the time, right? And that comes with practice, and I've done a good job over that over the years, but I'm still sitting here watching the squirrel in the backyard. So distraction. Why is it that most people focus on building something new rather than eliminating something old, right? And as I said, building new habits, it feels productive immediately, right? If let me go back to diet and exercise. Let's use probably the one that I've like the probably the most regimented thing I do is intermittent fasting. And I go in and out of it, but where it's, I stop eating at say 8 o'clock at night. That's my last bite of food. And then I won't eat anything till noon the next day. That's something that I've used to not uh, do. I implemented it. Um, and that was a new habit. Probably, I don't know, it was 8, 9 years ago. I started doing this kind of religiously, but it was a new habit that I implemented. Okay. So I'm going to go back to those 8 or 9 years ago when I started it. What did I see? Number one, it felt productive, right? I could see, like on the scale, I could see my weight going down a good bit. And when I started this, I was, probably a little bit heavier than I should have been at that time, but I could see the immediate results of the weight going down, and then that started flattening out after a month or so, right? Because a lot of it is water weight or whatever, and it kind of levels out. But I had added in a new habit that I was excited about. I could stick to it. It was, it was productive there for a short period of time. But what I didn't do while I just added in a new habit, intermittent fasting, I didn't change really that much what I was eating. I didn't change my exercise routine at the time. I was always working out a little bit, but it wasn't anything like it is now. Like I would go walking, or I might go for a run, or it was just sporadic. It was no like plan around it or focus around it. So I was doing those things already, eating bad. It was horrible sleep. My sleep was terrible. I used to drink a lot more than I do now back then. Like it wasn't anything for me to have a drink or two or three just about every night, right? And then way more on the weekends. So I had all these bad habits, but instead of stopping those leaks, I implemented a new habit, which was intermittent fasting. I saw some pretty good results, but I didn't stop the leak. So I was still unhealthy. All I was doing was kind of managing calories around intermittent fasting, but I was still eating horribly. My blood work eventually showed that, right? When I got my blood drawn a few years after still eating poorly. But I wasn't fixing the like root cause of all the reasons that I wanted to try something different, right? So hindsight, now, fortunately for me, I stuck to that. I started getting obsessive about my health. So I did start changing those old habits, right? I started sleeping better. I drastically reduced the drinking, and I stick to all these things to this day. I drastically improved my diet, what I was eating, not just when I was eating through the intermittent fasting, but what I was actually eating. And all of that stuff over the years, my workout routines, right? I started dialing those in, and now I got a pretty regimented routine that, I get bored with the same workouts, so I'll bounce in and out of certain things, but there's always a purpose behind it, whereas before in the bad habit, it wasn't. So I've done all these things that real change didn't start to happen. I probably intermittent fasted for about a year before I changed anything else. Um, and once I started stopping the leaks, that's when I started seeing really good results, right? And that was probably as I got in my late 30s, really around 40. When I hit 40, I was, pretty optimized from a health standpoint, but it was because I had not stopped all the leaks, but I really plugged them up where, they were pouring out the bucket. Now they were just kind of dripping out the bucket. Once I stopped, pretty much stopped most of the leaking with those bad habits I had, then I could shift my focus, which is where I'm at now, to adding more new habits in, right? So the leaks I mean, they still creep out every now and then. I might have to throw some, Flex Seal or duct tape on them. But for the most part, my focus now is not on those old leaks, right? I've eliminated those habits for the most part. It is now adding in new habits, right? But you've got to stop the leak before you can fill the bucket. Now I'm in the fill the bucket stage. So I can optimize and try all these different styles of nutrition and workouts and sauna and ice baths and stretching and all these things that I'm adding in that I haven't done in the past. Now I can add them in and get a way better result than if I was trying to add all these things in while still leaking, out the bottom, right? It's like the adding a gallon, 1.2 gallons, and leaking out 1.1 gallon. It's just going to take a long time to see any results, if any at all. So people tend to focus on the building because you see those results immediately, right? So a couple examples again, you might sleep horribly, right? Your habits around sleeping are terrible. So what could that look like? You doom scroll every night on your phone and you're just kind of nodding off, but you end up sitting there an hour longer than if you just put the phone away and just kind of calmly went to sleep, or maybe read a book, did something calming, not so active on your brain that you could have fallen asleep earlier. Maybe you don't have a nighttime routine where it's just chaos until the time you get in bed. So you're wired, all that energy's there, and now it's going to take you an hour to wind all that down and get to a point where you fall asleep, right? So those are all like the bad habits. Well, an example of adding in a new habit without fixing those leaks would be buying like sleep supplements, right? So going out and buying melatonin, or they make all kinds of sleep supplements. And some of them are great, but when you add them in, but you're still doing those same habits, those bad habits, and you're leaking, you might fall asleep a little sooner. You might maybe have a little bit more deep sleep by adding a supplement, but you're still doing the same bad habits that are impacting your sleep, right? Chaos all the way up to bedtime, eating late, like really late, right up to bedtime, doom scrolling, all that. If you're still doing that, but adding a supplement in, it's no different from me still eating terribly and not working out and adding intermittent fasting in, right? Small improvement, but you're not stopping the leak. A better approach, a more effective approach, would be adding, like, all right, I'm going to reshape my entire nighttime routine. So I'm not going to eat after, say, 8 o'clock, or call it 2 or 3 hours before you fall asleep. I'm going to sit down and just get myself calm before I get in bed. So whether that be on the couch or take a shower, or for me, my routine, and I don't share things to brag about what I do. I share them to give you insight of what I do, because it works for me. But like, I've spent the money and I have a sauna at my house now, right? So my nighttime routine is pretty regimented. Get the kids to bed, and soon as usually as they're, tuck them in, say good night and all that, I've already got my sauna heated up. I go right down. We're probably at 9 o'clock now, and I do that 20 to 30 minute sauna. I take a shower, and now we're at like quarter to 10. And the rest of the night, I'm hanging out with Katie, like in our room, calmly. Everything's calm, and then I'll go off to sleep at some point. It used to be my routine was chaos, put the kids to bed, and then I was gonna, go do stuff around the house, and then it's bedtime, and maybe take a shower and get in bed. Now my energy is just high, and I was eating right up, literally before bed. Sometimes I'd be in bed, lights off, eating a snack or something like that. Like, that's chaos for my body all the way up to the time I fall asleep. So it wasn't until I started changing that routine, the leaking, and slowing down the leak, that I actually truly started getting good sleep. And that's kind of where I'm at now. Now that I've stopped the leak, I have started adding in some supplements. I take magnesium. I forget which type of magnesium, but it's one that helps you rest better. Take that every night. I take a AGZ, so everybody's heard of like AG1, which is athletic greens. They make a nighttime mix that you mix with water. It's got like melatonin and all kinds of natural stuff in it that just helps you wind down. I've optimized, like I've eliminated a lot of the leaks and a lot of the bad habits now. I did that first, and now I can add in things to help me improve it. So just used a personal example there. So here's some of the leaks that people ignore, and I made some notes here, so I'll be looking down at that for anybody watching. But we'll start with like mental leaks. So a lot of that is like these are bad habits, like doom scrolling. When I say doom scrolling, I think everybody knows what I mean, but it's all of us are guilty of it to some degree, but just sitting there on your phone, you're just lost in your phone. You're scrolling through Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Reels, all this stuff. We're trying in the comments on other people's conversations, doom scrolling. Literally no value in that at all. You know, you can kind of curate some things. Like I have my, for example, my Instagram algorithm feeds me very productive stuff. Some stupid stuff gets through there every now and then, but because of what I click on and watch, like if I would let anybody open my Instagram right now and they can scroll through it, and what you're gonna see, you're gonna see golf videos, like golf tutorials, maybe some funny golf videos. You're gonna see a lot of workout and fitness videos. You're gonna see a lot of like relationship videos, marriage, parenting, stuff like that. You're going to see a lot of business videos and reels and things of that nature. A whole bunch of mindset stuff. So like Jocko's in my feed all the time, and all these mindset gurus, if you want to call them that, are in my feed. So for me, yes, I can get in the habit of doom scrolling, but I've intentionally curated mine to feed me good, valuable things, right? It's not always like that. I'll go down some rabbit holes like on YouTube where there's nothing valuable. I'm just watching DS, but that's doom scrolling. So that's a mental leak. Um, Negativity. I talk about it all the time. I am uh 99% positive in my life. I've intentionally been that way my entire life. That was handed down to me from my mother, who is the exact same way. So I don't spend a lot of time in negativity, but that's a mental leak for a lot of people. Their brain just goes to the negative side of everything they're faced with. Um, uh, Comparison, that's a big one. A lot of people spend too much time, and this is a negative habit of focusing on what other people have, and comparing what they have to what the next person has, and then obsess over, you know, the negative side of that. Kind of goes to negativity. Some relationship leaks. I would say probably all of these that I've listed out are things that I've struggled with as bad habits in my own relationships, right? And they are tone. Um, I have, and Katie and I openly talk about this now. We've done a lot of work on it. I've done a lot of work. She's done a lot of work to be able to articulate these things to me. But um, without intending to do so, I have a bad habit of using a very condescending tone. And I do that mostly with people that are closest to me. That's terrible. And what do I mean by that? Is like with Katie, for example, she might come to me with something that's going on at work and, share the details of it. My instinct is always to go into problem solving mode. So I'm trying to dissect the problem and help her solve it, where another topic, but what she really needs me to do is just listen. That's all she's wanting. But when I get into that, I always speak more times than not in a tone that is condescending. So I'll say things like that, like, you don't really think that, do you? Or there's no way you really said that to that person. Or that's like, are you crazy? Like that, you can't really possibly think that. Or, I would say things like that's pretty condescending. I'm saying to you without saying it, I think you're an idiot for thinking that. That's what she's hearing. So my intent was not that. It's never been that, but that was a leak in my, like, a relationship where that's how I would catch myself talking to my kids that way sometimes too, just very condescending. Like, come on, what are you thinking? That kind of thing. I've worked really hard on that, and I continue to work hard on that. Impatience. I talked about that earlier. I don't need to go into that defensiveness. Anytime like my thoughts or ideas would get challenged, I would get very defensive. I've For the most part, I feel like I have pretty much plugged that leak completely. I'm much more calmer when folks challenge my opinions. I actually welcome it and ask for it now, even those closest to me. I'll welcome that debate. I'll welcome the other opinion. And more times than not now, I find myself quickly changing my opinion if I hear a better one, right? That hadn't always been the case. And that was a relationship leak I had to plug. And then we'll get into like some financial leaks. Lifestyle inflation. You always hear about lifestyle creep, spending more than you make. As you make more. So for those that are watching, I'm holding my hands side by side. The one on my left is how much you're making. The one on the right is how much you're spending. And as one goes up, the next one follows it. One goes up, the next one follows it. One goes up, the next one follows it. And a lot of times, the one that's following it, which is the spending, tends to stay one step ahead of the income one. And over time, what you have is more money going out than is coming in. And that's when the debt just snowballs and gets out of control. So that's a financial leak, is just not managing your spending relative to your earning, right? And that's a big one that people struggle with. Another one is impulse spending. So just getting a good mood about something. It's like, oh, screw it. I'll deal with the results later, and you just buy it. You buy the $1,000 toy or whatever it is. That's impulse spending. And that's a habit that is a leak. If you're trying to get your financial stuff in order, that's one that needs to be plugged. And the other one is just simply trying to impress people, right? Try, you know, unfortunately, a lot of us spend money on things that the satisfaction we're getting from those things is other people seeing those things. And, that's unfortunate. But that's the culture we live in. I fortunately, I can't say I've dealt with that much in my life. I generally, in general, don't really care about what people think about the things I have, right? The vehicles I didn't, I never owned a new vehicle until 2020. I bought the truck that I'm driving right now, which is a 2026, or 6 years later. It's a 2020 model. That was the first new vehicle. I was almost 40 years old before I bought a new vehicle. Everything I bought was used. I made a pile of money for the 20 years leading up to that and never spent money on a new vehicle. So that was because I don't give a hoot about what anybody thinks about the vehicle I'm driving, right? It was nice to have a new vehicle. I'll probably buy more new vehicles now that, I'm comfortable doing so, but it'll never be because of what people think. Sure, it feels nice to hear people say, hey man, your truck looks good. That's a nice truck. Where'd you get it? Or what kind is it? Blah, blah, blah. But that stuff doesn't bother me. So, but a lot of people have a financial leak of spending money just to keep up with their peers and the people around them. That's a leak. So on the financial side, you got to fix those leaks, the habits, before you go and say, oh, I'm going to go earn more money. I'm going to go do this to earn more money. What's going to happen? All the leaks you have are just going to leak more. It's just more money to go leak out. You're going to spend more and do all these things. So you got to fix those habits. And then lastly, I've already talked about a lot of this, but the physical leaks are like poor sleep, alcohol. That's a big one for a lot of folks. It was a big one for me. I can't say I ever got to a point where like it was a physical problem. I don't think I ever got to that point, or it played a role negative on any relationships or anything. But it was to a point where, like, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I would start thinking, like, I can't wait to get home and make a drink or drink a beer or something like that. Or as soon as I fire up the grill, I got to grab a beer. And so it was kind of this, like, I could do without it. So I didn't physically need it, but I had just gotten myself in this nasty habit of doing that every day pretty much. And it got to a point where, especially like at its worst, this could be a whole nother podcast, but at its worst was when I was kind of like in between my former career and trying to go into entrepreneurship. And that was, I say all the time, I don't really have a lot of stress in my life, but that would have been probably my most stressful period because I just was juggling a lot of mental load around trying to figure it all out. And I had two demanding things going on, a career and a business. And so I probably at that point for about 6 months, I was coping with a lot of that with alcohol, right? But fortunately, I got all that together, and now like I might have a few drinks on the weekend. That's it. And a couple times a year, like when I'm on vacation, I ramp that up a little bit or things like that. But it's not. It's I have fixed that leak, so it's not a leak. Now the negative that was coming from it outside of like alcohol is poison, but it's extra calories. It's hard to manage my weight. It's, nobody wants to be around somebody that's drunk all the time, right? So I don't want to be that guy and like slowly evolve to that guy. So I had to eliminate all that. So those are some physical leaks. Some other ones, stress, junk food, things like that, just bad eating, all things you got to fix before you add things in. So, like I'm just scanning through my notes here. I made a bunch of them. So, like, removing friction creates momentum faster than adding complexity. I'll read that again. That's not my quote. I stole that from somewhere. But removing friction creates momentum faster than adding complexity. Let's dissect that. The friction is all these bad habits. It's the leak in the bucket, right? And that are causing all the, that's the root to all the problems you might have, whatever it is, in business, finance, personal, marriage, health, whatever it is. But the friction, start removing that, you'll get more momentum than adding in intermittent fasting, than starting to read a bunch of books and stuff like that. You can add those things in, but if you don't remove that friction, it's a wash. If someone improves, let's say, let me think through this for a second. Burning the ships. So I'll use a boat analogy. If your boat, and we just got a boat, not a new boat. It's a nice boat for us, but it's a used boat, something to play around on the river. But if your boat is taking on water, you don't slam the throttle down and go faster. You don't start, if you don't have a motor, if you're just paddling like in a kayak or something, you don't start paddling faster or rowing harder. You fix the hole. You find the hole, you find what's leaking, and you try to put all your energy into fixing that. This is no different than the bucket or anything else. Find where the leaks are, fix them. So a lot of times these bad habits, these leaks that I'm talking about, become people's identity, right? And people have a hard time letting go of identity, so much so that they protect that identity. So a good example could be, again, alcohol. Alcohol can kind of protect your social identity, right? You might struggle going into a social event until you have a beer or two, or you think that that's or you have a drink or two, and that opens you up socially, and you deal with those, and that's how you cope with it. So that is your identity. Is alcohol correlates with a good time at social events, weddings, and wherever you're at where there's a lot of people. That just makes it better, right? Maybe some truth to that, but that becomes your identity. So it's hard to cut back on that, because you want to protect that habit that is who you are, right? That's who you think you are. Being busy protects your ego, right? And this is a big one that I'm trying to change. Like, as I sit here and record this, is I had a real bad habit, and I still do it sometimes. When people come up and ask me, "Hey, Jason, how you doing?" Obviously, I'm good, just busy. I would always say, "I'm just busy, man. Everything's wide open. We're wide open right now." The reality is, I'm never not busy. I'm never not wide open. So why the hell do I need to tell everybody I'm busy, right? That's annoying. So I was identifying, because to me, it's an ego thing. Like, I want people to know that I'm actively doing stuff. I'm busy with my family, my kids, my business. All this stuff is busy, busy, busy. So I take pride in that, right? The reality is, that's just the baseline, right? I have 2 kids. They're active. They're going to be active until they're out of the house. They've been active since they were 3 years old. in different activities. Emma started dancing when she was probably 1, 2. And then she's done everything, all kinds of stuff since then. JJ's been active since day one. That's 18 years. Uh, More than that, because 18 years with Emma and then 4 additional. So 22 years of my life are going to be quote unquote busy, right? Because of all the things they're involved with: life, business, work, family, social life, all that stuff is busy. So why the hell do I need to identify as being busy all the time, right? So that's a big one. I'm sorry I get so fired up about this, because it's a example of like this habit that I'm trying to protect my identity, because I identify as a busy person. I get stuff done. I'm always going. So I feel the need to tell everybody that. I'm stopping that. Like, I'm actively working on that now. So if you hear this, next time you come up to me, call me out. If you asked how I'm doing, I'll say, I'm good, man. Just busy, just wide open, going everywhere. Blah, blah, blah. JJ's doing this. Emma's doing this. Stop me in my tracks and say, hey, I saw your podcast. You're doing what you said you shouldn't do. So if you see me, I hope I have a lot of people do that. I hope I don't sell you I'm busy, because I'm really actively trying to work on that. But that's a big one for me that I'm passionate about, because it annoys me when other people do it. And here I am, I do the same thing, probably more than them. I don't need to hear how busy you are. Like, we can get to everything you got going on in a conversation, but nobody needs to hear the first thing that come out of my mouth, Mr. Positive and always good energy. Nobody needs to hear, oh, I'm so busy. Oh, it's just so busy. I choose everything I do. I have intentionally I'm getting very passionate right here, so let me calm down. I have intentionally curated this life to allow me to do it however I want to do it, right? With my wife, with my kids, with my family, with my hobbies, all this stuff. I have chosen and curated everything to be done on my time, my schedule, stuff like that. So for me to say I'm busy as a way of saying, oh, it's chaos right now, so busy, and to let people know I'm real busy and I can't be bothered right now. I'm just so busy. I've chosen to be that way. So that's the baseline. I made a choice to be like that. The only the only time there's been seasons through this growth of this new business, maybe a month or two at a time, where I legit was busier than normal, right? And so I could say in a conversation, yeah, man, things been a little crazy at work lately. Or there's been times where, like, the kids' activities overlap. So Emma might have swimming and cheer, and JJ might have wrestling and baseball, or whatever, like 4 things going on at one time. That's busier than the baseline. So in a conversation, I could say that, but just to lead with, I'm busy, I'm always busy, oh, I'm stopping it. So I don't know how I got so into that tangent, but that was one. So another example of people protecting habits to protect their identity is distraction. I guess protects, like, I'm trying to think of how to articulate like this, but like, people use distraction, as I mentioned earlier, that I struggle with, to protect people from silence, to protect themselves from silence. So, and I'm not saying like verbal noise, silence, I'm talking about in their head. So, most people, especially people with brains like mine, which are just all over the place, have a tough time sitting with silence and just sitting in their own brain and not letting it go crazy and stuff like that. Almost so much so that becomes their identity, and they seek distraction to avoid it, right? I was telling Bill, we were traveling somewhere recently together in a ride in a car. We were talking like some differences between us. Bill can sit in silence without any conversation, 2 people in a car all day long. It doesn't bother him at all. Me, if I go more than 10 seconds and we're both awake and no words been said, I'm going to make up some BS to talk about because I don't like the silence, right? I'm going to distract the silence. That's not great, right? That's I need to get better at just sitting in silence. I sit in silence a lot, just because I'm by myself a lot. But how do I distract that silence? I've talked about it before. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but if it's silent and I don't have anything else to think about for 15 minutes, I'm going to throw a podcast on. I'm going to put an audio book on, something that's just feeding my brain. Not, excuse me, not necessarily a bad thing, but if I dig deeper, that's just me distracting silence, right? And probably not the greatest thing. I need to learn and fix that leak, and do a better job just being able to sit still and quiet, right? I can do it when I'm hunting. For some reason, that's one. I guess I am distracted by nature and stuff like that. But anyway, that could be another tangent. Um, let's see. So here are some questions to ask before I start wrapping things up. Um, what are you avoiding, right? What are you by not? Why are you not trying to sit back and identify these bad habits in your life? And I'm just going to run through the gamut again. They could be, um, what you eat, the activities you do physically, what you think about, what you consume, um, from a mental and TV, radio, reading, whatever that is, um, what you're drinking from an alcohol standpoint, how you're spending your money, how you're running your business, what your core values are. If those are not the most positive values, what are they, and are they causing leaks? So identify all that. Start by that. Like, why? The question is, why are you avoiding starting there, right? And is it because you identify as all these things, or is it because you know that it's hard? Just kind of what I started off with. It's hard to like look internally and say, hey, these are areas that I need to fix before I start continuing to grow in the other area. So that kind of be the first question to ask yourself. What leaks are you avoiding or defending because they feel familiar, right? Drinking a couple beers every night. That's familiar to you. It's part of your identity. Using a condescending tone to your wife is familiar to you. It's what you do. That's kind of how you talk, and you've established that there is familiar. So you're avoiding fixing it. Eating that late night, chocolate chip cookies and milk before you go to bed. I say that because that was my snack every night for years. I was goofy about it, but I would eat 6 Chips Ahoy chocolate chip cookies and a big tall glass of milk every night, right before bed, before I go to sleep, for years. I mean, back to like high school, all the way through probably my early 30s. I would do it every night. Now, think about the calories and the sugar and all that stuff, but um, that felt familiar, right? And I had to stop that leak before I started fixing other things. So what are you defending? Like, I would have been defensive my whole life about that if somebody challenged me on it, saying, it's my only vice, right? I'll do that at night. It's fine. It's not, if I stop that, it ain't going to fix or change anything. No, it's a mindset leak that I'm eating this terrible snack every night. Still, I try not to drink. I don't drink as much milk now. I don't eat many cookies either. But I look forward to Christmas Eve, right? So I do things in moderation. Christmas Eve, Santa gets all the cookies and milk, and he shares them with me. So I look forward to that. But outside of that, I've completely eliminated that habit, right? Something that felt so familiar for 30 years for me is now gone, right? It's not even on the forefront of my mind, but I had to fix that instead of defending it because it felt familiar. So to bring it all full circle, like, you don't need to be asking yourself, what new app do I need to add to my life to optimize things? What morning routine should I copy? What new podcast should I listen to? What sauna do I need to add, or ice bath, or supplements and stuff like that? You need to ask, what is quietly sitting there in your daily routines that is draining your life? That the bucket is letting all the water out. What's doing that? Fix that, address that. You're not going to stop the leak completely in most cases, but manage it, reduce the leak, and then start adding all that other stuff I mentioned. So, like, your next level may not require becoming somebody new. It may require like stopping the things that are keeping you from becoming who you already could be, right? Like, I don't care how old you are, right? A lot of these habits might have been, you might be 70 years old listening to this and been doing the same. You might have been smoking cigarettes since you were 15 and you're 70. It's not too late to eliminate that habit. Do you think that's a net gain or a net loss at that point? It's going to be a net gain, right? You could literally add a few years to your life by stopping at this point. And I'm just using that as an example because it came to my head. But kind of to wrap up with the final quote is the same one I started with. Quitting bad habits is more impactful than building great habits. You got to stop the leak before you fill the bucket. That's enough on that. So I appreciate you guys listening to this and tuning in as always, and we will see you next week on Burning the Ships. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Burning the Ships. I want to give a special thanks to our sponsor, 608B Capital, helping real estate investors secure fast, reliable funding to fuel their boldest moves. If you're ready to take your investing to the next level, visit 608bcapital.com to learn more. If you found value in today's episode, please take a moment to rate and review the podcast. Your feedback not only helps us improve, but it also helps us reach more people who are ready to burn the ships and commit fully to their goals. And don't forget to share the episode with someone who needs that extra push to take bold action. I'll leave you with this. Burning the ships isn't just about removing the option to retreat. It's about unlocking the courage to charge forward. No matter the odds, the past is behind you and the future is yours to conquer. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time on Burning the Ships.